to my computer. So, Jamie, Fiongal, welcome. It's so lovely to see you both here. This podcast is all about interesting lives of ordinary people, and having met you both, you are far from ordinary. But be that as it may, I thought it'd be so nice to get you both to come here and talk a little bit about your individual journeys, but also your journeys together, because you both are part of the Wellness Foundry, which is all about, bringing the psychic arts to people like me. You both teach as well as you do sessions individually and maybe in groups. I don't know. There's lots you do, retreats and things like that. But of course, before you came together, you were leading separate lives. And so what I'm really keen to do is maybe begin with, maybe let's go with Fingal first. Fingal, tell us about what you see as a turning point in your young life, especially looking back from where you are today. What brought you to, you think, where you are today?
Great question. First and foremost, thanks for having us on. Pleasure. Yeah, it was around the age of 28, maybe slightly earlier. It was about that time. There was two kind of significant moments. So I'm 39 now. So we're going back about 13 years. And one kind of seemingly, it was curious, but I couldn't quite understand its context or relevance, was I had a dream that kind of was prophetic, later turned out to be true. And I thought, oh, this is a bit odd. That's a bit strange. This has never happened. And the quality of that dream was different from, normally you just have those run-of-the-mill dreams where you're either standing at the photocopier or you have those kind of weird dreams where you're running away from a bear, which you think, is just very symbolic. But there was an acuteness to this dream. So I woke up and did a bit of investigation, and it turned out to be completely on the nose. And then kind of mothballed that, put that on one side.
Sorry, before you go on, I want to know a little bit about this dream. So what was this? Maybe you don't want to give all the details, perhaps,
No, that's absolutely
personal, but you've got my curiosity going now.
right. So my mum at the time lived in France, and she bred and kept rabbits, and it was part of her livelihood that she kept. So she had about, say, 20 rabbits in cages, very well looked after, very well cared for, but in her garden. And I went to sleep, and I'll synopsisize the dream, but it was effectively a dream of me and my mum sitting on a park bench with a rabbit in a cage. And I was looking after this rabbit for a friend. And my mum said, being an animal psychologist, said, oh, you can just let the rabbit out. It's not stressed. It won't run away. So I let it out, and it started digging underneath the ground. So I started chasing it and digging under the ground and trying to get after it. And I woke up from this dream thinking it's really odd, really, really odd. But I woke up with an innate knowing that I had to message my mum and say, Mum, are all your rabbits okay? Just go and check on them, please, because I just have a sense that something's going on, something's amiss. And she did. She came back and she said, oh, that's so bizarre. They've all escaped. They've all gone missing. So lo and behold, it was a neighbour who thought it wasn't very nice to keep rabbits in cages, so they let them all out. But the very same night that I had this dream, and since there's been a kind of few more kind of connections like that with my mum. But I was working in fashion at the time. I was leading a very, very busy life, so I thought, well, weird, but didn't really look too much into it. Fast forward 2 years, I hit crisis point with health.
Mm.
So I was just fainting all the time. And that lasted at least a year. And we did lots of investigation, traditional investigation, spent 5 days in hospital. And one time it happened, I was fainting on a Buddhist retreat. I'm an erstwhile Buddhist. I was practicing Buddhist for 8 years. And I was on this retreat because up until that point, people were saying you're not eating well enough or you're just stressed. And I was on this silent meditation retreat, very calm, very restorative retreat, and fainted again and got taken to A&E.
Mm.
And that contrast between a silent Buddhist retreat and a bustling, frantic accident emergency. I
Yeah.
just thought, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. If this is what life is about, I'm not interested. Thankfully, I came back from that retreat, and somebody had mentioned, have you ever looked at acupuncture? Uh, and that, again, I'm going to kind of synopsisize, but that led me onto a journey of exploration around energy. I hadn't really explored the concept of energy up until that point, but the acupuncturist was the first person that I was explaining the symptoms to. And she looked very kind of calm and composed and just nodded and said, okay, we can work with this. Whereas previously it'd just been blank faces and people not really being able to offer any insight.
Yes.
I tried Reiki, and then at around that time, I started training in the tarot. So I spent I think I spent about 2 years training in the tarot with a wonderful woman called Tiffany Crisara. And on the back of that, I don't even know how it happened. It's one of those things I just don't know. I don't remember cognitively thinking, oh, this is what I'm going to do. But I somehow stumbled on this place called the College of Psychic Studies in South
Mm.
Kensington, which is amazing. It's been there for over 100 years.
Mm.
And I walked in and I just went, oh, this is what's been going on. It
Yeah.
all makes sense now. All of my experiences, all of my, because I was having meditation experiences thinking, oh, this is just the upshot of being a Buddhist. And I was going to the Buddhist order and saying, I'm having these experiences. What is it about? And they were kind of shaking their head and going, no, that's not meant to happen. And that was kind of happening everywhere that I was turning to. So eventually I trained at the College of Psychic Studies for 6 years and everything just settled in my life. I started becoming a lot more integrated, a lot more aware. And just to kind of wrap this up briefly, it also made sense to a lot of experiences that I was having as a very young child. So
Mm.
sounds mad, but at about the age of 10, I used to lie in my bed and try and astral project, which is like where you leave your body and try. And I don't know why, I don't know where that curiosity came from, but
And
it
were
was,
you able to do it? I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
I used to have really mad experiences as a little kid. I would kind of see the top of my house, or the room would suddenly get really expansive and big. It freaked me out quite a lot because again, I didn't know what was going on. Um, but this, I suppose, this is part of my frustration when people, obviously, this industry and working as a kind of psychic, intuitive, and spiritual realm, it's still slightly sniffed at, I suppose, sometimes. And I find that really frustrating because for me, it's like, well, these were my experiences, and you can't deny my experiences.
Mm.
For me, it was a very, very necessary, it may sound hyperbolic, but I think had I not found these practices and found this development, I would be in pretty bad shape.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about your experience, Fingal, is that like a lot of other people's experiences, we look for answers outside, and it's only when we just can't find them anymore that we feel, okay, like let's do something different. Let's go within and find the answers, somewhere else. And it's sad really that it takes so many negative experiences to push us, in the direction that we're meant to be going. Thank you so much for sharing, Finn. Jamie, let me ask you the same question. What was your journey like, and what was your turning point to get to where you are?
I suppose there's been a few different things. I've always been interested in the weird and wonderful. I remember doing Ouija boards in my local graveyard from the age of
Oh my
7. So I've been like interested in
Don't try
this.
that at
Yeah.
home.
Okay. And getting
What do
groups.
your parents have to say about that?
Well, they didn't know. They didn't know I was doing that. No, I remember we'd meet my friend after school and say meet at the bus stop, and then we'd kind of walk down to the graveyard and we'd packed our Ouija board, and then we'd go and do it in the little shelter of the graveyard. So I've been doing it ever since I was a kid. We used to practice levitation. I remember groups of us at one point just being hands
Same.
underneath and can we rise and lift you up? All these things that perhaps was quite childlike, and that again, that thing where as children we don't have those same we don't have any inhibitions,
Yes.
do we? We just kind of go for it. We just allow whatever's happening to come through. So it was all very natural. So it started like that. And then, I went through my teen years and I had a whole um, the usual teen issues. And then I suppose my next biggest turning point, I guess, is I moved in with a friend of mine. It's funny, I always mention her, but it's true, Sarah Jane. And she was a little bit older than me, a few years older than me. I'd already started on a bit of a spiritual journey and just started handing me books. So I just started reading a few different books, mainly about empowering yourself. The Secret, that's one of those books that anybody can read and just has such a strong impact. And just went on, found Louise Hay, found different authors and different people from the spiritual world. And then I actually started, funnily enough, as well, going to the College of Psychic Studies, but much younger. So I must have been going to the college from about the age of 18 or 19 or something. So quite young,
Mm.
just going to a meditation circle. And again, this meditation circle was not like a normal meditation circle. This was down in the basement of the College of Psychic Studies, which was very dense, very heavy, strong, powerful energy with a man called Julian, who's no longer with us, sadly. But he used to lead what I originally thought was just a group meditation circle. But then I noticed he would start kind of changing his voice and things would start going weird and he'd stand up and his eyes would roll. And I'd be like, what the hell is going on? And he was channeling. So
Yeah.
then he would channel somebody and then he would start bringing messages. So the first half of the session was a meditation. And then the second half was Julian channeling whatever messages were coming through.
Mm.
So that was my first introduction, and I just loved that. Went every week, I think once a week for about 3 years to that circle. So it was very much on that journey. And then I went and had a career as a professional dancer and lived a very hedonistic life and just partied, enjoyed, traveled the world, like did all those things that you should do in your 20s. And just had a lot of fun. And I guess my spiritual journey halted slightly. I didn't, it was, all I can say. I knew it was always there. And my friends always knew I was the kind of weird one or the one that would come out with some of these strange things, but never really continued with it. And then my next turning point, two turning points. The first one was the death of my father. And as anyone knows, when you lose somebody close to you, I think particularly a parent or a partner or a child, it's transformative, right? It has a huge, huge effect. You start questioning things. It's the first time I'd lost grandparents before, but it didn't hit me quite the same. And I think it really pushed me to just look at life a little bit deeper and what it all means and what are we here for. And if it's so easy to be taken away from you, then why don't we take it more importantly while we're here? And I had a real moment as well, because I sat with my father. I nursed him for his last 6 weeks of his life, which was, again, one of the hardest things, but one of the most beautiful things and privileged things to be able to do, to see that happen. I've had such insight now to what death is like, and was with him when he took his last breath and was holding his hand. And I think that was really profound for me as well. So that was certainly another trigger. And I think I started getting back into yoga practice and slowly just started doing those things that were a bit more westernized yoga, a bit of meditation here and there, Bikram yoga, that thing that was really kind of coming through at that time.
Mm.
And still didn't delve much deeper. And then about 8 years ago, I had my own health crisis. It's always health crisis. It is. It's that sad thing. You're completely right. Why we let it get to that point. But I was, two-part. I was diagnosed as being HIV positive, which came as quite a shock. I wasn't aware.
Mm.
I was very much on this path at the time of I was practicing yoga daily. I didn't take any medication, didn't even take paracetamol. And I wanted to try and treat this naturally myself. So I spent about 6 months to a year seeing various practitioners and doing all the alternative things, which some were great. I lost a lot of weight because I went on a raw food diet for about 6 to 8 months and got pretty healthy and fit. But I think underneath what was going on, I wasn't quite aware. And then very, very suddenly it took a turn for the worse and I got very sick very quickly.
Mm.
And that resulted in me having cancer. I got Kaposi sarcoma, which is something related to HIV if you don't start the medication.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was a real wake-up call. It was like, okay, I've got to get my stuff together. So I started taking the medication, and actually it was amazing. And my view since then of Western medicine has really shifted. And I really, really believe there is a place for both in this world. I don't think it's about, I think the issues occur when we become tunnel vision and we think one way is the right way. And
Yes.
that was me for a long time, and I learnt the hard way.
Mm.
Really did. And I kind of had this experience. I went on the medication. Within 2 weeks, I was feeling better. I couldn't get out of bed. I was having night sweats. I couldn't walk properly. My immune system was failing quite dramatically. And and that was when I was like, okay, I've got to get a grip on this now. So I went down the route of having chemotherapy, but at the same time, I decided if I'm going to go down this Western route, I'm going to ramp up my Eastern practices, my spiritual practices. And then for about a year, I spent a long, long time in contemplation, in meditation, in my own yoga practices. I really looked at my diet seriously. I had some talking therapies. I had more healings with people and readings, and I just did that for a long, long time. And I really feel like that was sustaining me. It was giving me that I didn't want to just put all of my eggs in one basket. I wanted to try everything and do everything so that my healing came from a place of
Holistic.
holistic healing, a whole healing. And
Mm.
it worked, and I got better, and I felt better than ever. I ran a marathon while I was during my chemotherapy. It's
Wow.
funny, I'm always like, I make this joke, I'm like, I was the fittest ever when I was going through cancer. I'm like, oh, I want to go back to my cancer weight. I was so fit and so healthy. And it's just my way of playing off that I was really dedicated. And I think that was a big turning point. So from there on, that practice continued.
Wow. And I can imagine that whole experience would have sort of given you so much inner belief and resilience, right? If you can get through that. And I loved what you said, Jamie, about the need for balance. Like it doesn't have to be this or that. It can be this and that. But the lesson that both of your experiences tell me, and hopefully tell people who are listening to this, is that actually there's a place for all different kinds of things. But the,
Absolutely.
the key is to listen to what's going on in your body, which
Yeah.
is often what we don't do because there's so much noise around us. And
Yeah.
also, I think, I don't know, maybe Jamie, your childhood was maybe a little bit more sort of accepting, your maybe the people around you are more accepting. But for some people, the minute they get a sense there's something a little bit unusual, they want to just quash it. They like, no, you don't want to be doing that because what kind of career do you have in that? So I sense that it's that really that awareness that actually there's a place for all of these things in our lives and discovering what's right for you. So that's beautiful. And are you completely well now, Jamie? You look well.
Yeah. I'm great. Still various issues, but not really to do with that, but just the strain of life, just taking its toll, and we just have to be really mindful that we work in wellness, but
Yeah.
often Dingle and I neglect ourselves, and it's a real key lesson. Actually, we decided we both got to a place again feeling a bit unwell with different issues over the past month, and we've decided to head off to India on Monday and go and spend some time at an Ayurvedic treatment center and just really take some time, like you said, to be still. We're not going to work, to be still, to be present, to go inward, because we know ultimately our body knows what it needs to do to get better. We just need to give it the space to do that.
Yes, that's beautiful. Whereabouts in India is this retreat?
It's in Gujarat.
Okay.
Gujarat. Yeah,
Okay.
we don't know it very well. It seems like it's off the beaten track.
Yeah.
We've both been to the cities before, but this is very much a small town, and I think that again, that's going to be quite beautiful just to have that simplicity.
Lovely. Sounds beautiful. Well, I hope you have an amazing time. It's going to be very hot there.
I
Just
know, I know.
just go prepared for intense heat.
Yeah.
Um, That's lovely. So now, obviously, I want to also let listeners know that Jamie and Fingal had this lovely podcast that you do, and I've listened to many of your earlier episodes anyway. I haven't listened more recently, but in that, we hear so much about your how you got together, and all there's lovely stories in there. So I don't want to take up time today just re-talking about things that are already on there. I want people to go and listen to your podcast. So I'm really now I want to understand the Wellness Foundry. Obviously, I love the name, and is it a rabbit on the logo? I'm not very observed. It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's strictly speaking, it's a hare because I think
Okay.
hares are a little more elegant than rabbits. Sorry to the rabbit lovers out there. But it was basically inspired by the dream. It was funny, my best friend, I was really wrestling with this logo for ages. And she said, "Why haven't you got a rabbit on there?" I was like, "Of course." And it just fell onto the page after that. So
Well, the good thing is he's such a great designer, so he can have these visuals and then he can actually draw it and make it happen. He's one of those annoying people that can do everything that you see.
That's
It's
so amazing. I
blessing
love
and curse.
it is.
That's a gift. It's a gift. So tell us about, your journey together. So you obviously, you've been together for how many years now?
We met in 2019, so it's
Okay.
coming up to 6 years.
Yes. So collectively, you've grown this, the Wellness Foundry, and I like you. I mean, either of one, if you can begin, tell me about the turning point for you together as part of this, business, taking something that is not, maybe mainstream and actually turning it into a business while still being very true to your principles and your values and the reasons you set up the Wellness Foundry. It's a big question, I know, but you can answer it. I
Well,
hope.
I might start because like the Wellness Foundry initially. So I set it up in 2018, the end of 2018. And that was very much a soft launch. And I was still working in fashion at the time. Hilariously enough, my very last job in fashion was working as an ecclesiastical tailor. So I was measuring priests and making their cassocks behind Westminster Abbey, and I would be sneaking out to take phone calls about tarot readings. So I always thought if they found out, I'd be excommunicated on the spot. But yeah, it was a kind of soft launch. I was just doing it part-time, to be honest. I was doing readings from my kitchen table, or I'd be going to people's houses really in the early days. And then as these wonderful timings go, I handed in my notice a week before lockdown with a view to work on the Wellness Foundry full time. The big turning point in the business, I woke up one morning and my inbox was just filled with bookings. I thought, what's gone on here? And completely unbeknownst to me, I'd been listed in Time Out magazine as one of the top places to go for tarot readings in London. So that really established the business. That was the best piece of marketing ever, really.
And it still is. All these years later, if you type it in, it still comes up at the top in Google. It's incredible the power
Amazing.
that these big publications have.
Yeah, it was really, I'm so, so grateful, so, so thankful for that. And then started working on it and lockdown. We had a great time in lockdown, really, because I was just establishing this business. I trained online anyway, so I just translated it all to Zoom pretty early on. But the view, because what you'd said, Rahini, really resonates in terms of it is slightly off the beaten track in terms of businesses. And I was met with a lot of resistance in the beginning. I was met a lot with it's a tarot business, it's not scalable, it's not widespread enough. How is it possibly going to work? And there's something innate in me that just knew I don't perceive these same limits as other people do.
Mhm.
I know that there is huge scope within this. Um, and so initially it started off as one-to-one readings, but my thinking was always, if I've experienced this and I've gone through this, there must be other people out there that are going through the same. And lo and behold, I was right. And something that I really identified that you were speaking about before is we both mentioned so often people leave it to crisis point despite the fact that at quite a young age, they may be very intuitive or very connected, or the amount of times I've heard people say, "Oh, my daughter speaks to granddad all the time, even though he's not here," and she will say, "Oh, he used to have a mustache, and my daughter knows stuff about." Very, very common on those things. And the problem is because it's not kind of widely accepted and it's still very much marginalized and boo-booed, and it's very often when I say what I do for work, the response tends to be, "Oh my God, that's amazing, fascinating, oh, tell me more," or it's, "Oh, that's cute." And it's this like kind of pat on the head. "Oh, isn't that cute of you to believe in these things?" And what we're hoping, and it is happening slowly, 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 but what we're hoping with the Wellness Foundry is that we are representing one really key thing with the Wellness Foundry that I always wanted to set out right from the get-go is it had to be grounded. It had to be delivered in a way that was accessible, that wasn't fey, that wasn't because I feel that sometimes that does more damage than good. And what was great about having a fashion background is I could bring a certain aestheticism to it. I could bring a kind of, I wanted to make it cool and not make it end of the pier, kind of draped in purple velvet, kind of, and that's great, that's needed too. But I felt that there was a counterpoint. And what's really fascinating is that through the millennials and Gen Z and all of these people that are coming up, this interest in spirituality is certainly swelling. And I wanted to ensure that people weren't put off. The great thing, one of the issues with the spiritual wellness arena is it's highly, highly unregulated. And we would want it to be more regulated. I think a lot of people would agree with that. It would be great to be standardized. It'd be great to have a kind of governing body and all of these things. But because legally we still have to class ourselves as entertainment, it's mad. It's absolutely mad. But because there are these bizarre, just very quickly, as an aside, both Starling and Square have cancelled our business accounts because of what we do.
Oh, wow.
So it's really, there's a lot of preconceived ideas and a lot of judgment still out there. And it's quite bracing when you bump into it and think, "Oh, we've come so far, yet we've come nowhere." And one of the real aspects of the Wellness Foundry is to, in a way, standardize this, but also ensure that there is a kind of quality. All of our readers have trained for at least 5 years. We want them to be really, to know this inside and out, because what we're doing is so when people are coming to us, they're often in quite a vulnerable space. Or they're needing a lot of support, and there is an implicit responsibility that we have. We are very aware that we could do more damage than good.
Well, that we hear time and time again from people, "Oh no, I'm too scared of that. You might tell me something bad." And that's because in recent times, that's what's happened. Readers have got this power in thinking, they go in and they just tell them all these bad things that's going to happen, which is absolutely pointless. There is no reason or no need to tell somebody that you're going to break up with somebody or that person's going to die. There's just no need for that. And I think that's the thing that I don't think we see it as much these days. I think it's got better for sure. But I know I've been having readings since I was 16, and I know back then some of the old school psychic mediums, they don't hold back. They just tell you exactly. And I think that's changing, and I think it needs to change. I think we need to be mindful about the other person's feelings rather than it just being, "Oh well, it's coming through spirit, I'm just going to say what they tell me to." That's really it's not ethical.
I have a question on that though, because I'm curious to know, what do you think the role of the psychic is in that space? Because because nothing is certain, is it? It's like to say that, you're going to break that this relationship is terrible for you, you shouldn't be in it. How would you deal with that kind of situation? Because it feels to me that you're acting as a messenger, something is coming through you rather than from within you, perhaps. Um, how much is, how clean is that vessel through which it's coming? How can you stop that message from being contaminated by stuff that's going on inside your vessel? Do you see what I mean?
Great
These two
question.
psychics would have a completely different message for that person. So just tying that in, how on earth would you regulate something like that? Because it feels like it's each person is very unique in the way they actually act out this particular role. Either of you can.
I think the work is one thing. The actual, when we say we train at the College of Psychic Studies, people always go, "Oh, what do you need to train for? Isn't it a gift?"
Mm,
And like with anything, it's still a muscle that you have to work and practice, and you start understanding what certain symbols mean. They start giving you messages or images in a way, and you understand, oh, that translates to this. So that's part of it. But the biggest part about it is delivering a message with compassion. So all we're doing, receiving information, filtering it and saying, how can I deliver that in a way that's going to be kind, compassionate, and not do any damage? And
mm,
that's the hard thing. And that's the bit that most readers don't get. And that's what training at the College of Psychic Studies does.
Always us.
It's what training with the Wellness Foundry does. Well, yeah, because we've learned from them, haven't we? They were our
mm,
teachers and mentors, and we've followed that same path. And that's how we teach. And that's the bit. That's the bit is that, we are constantly having to, if we said everything that they said to us, I mean, we couldn't. You just can't say, you have to filter it. You have to soften it slightly, and you go in slowly. And there might be a really strong message in there, and it may well be something about health that they need to look at. But you certainly don't go straight in with that message. You do it slowly. You ask, "Oh, how have you been at the moment? Have you noticed any issues within your lower back?" And you just start slowly, slowly. And if you see that they're on board and they're happy and they're comfortable talking about it, then you can maybe go a little bit further. Would you agree?
yes.
Yes, yes, and because one of the things is I always say we're working in the vibration of love. So I very rarely get those kind of, oh, your parents are going to
No,
divorce,
no.
or oh, you're going to lose your job. And what I also always say is if we do have challenges, there may be moments, oh, work is going to get a bit rocky for a while. The focus is always how do you best navigate that situation rather than just, and you're exactly right, Rahini. It's like if you're saying to somebody you're going to break up with your boyfriend, it just becomes self-fulfilling prophecy 9 times out of 10. What I also love about the question, and I hadn't thought of it in this terminology, is about being the contaminated vessel. And one thing that's often overlooked when I'm teaching intuitive development, spiritual development, psychic development, much of the same thing, I say that this will ruin your life. And I kind of say that with a slightly tongue in cheek, but the work prompts self-development too.
Mm,
Those things go hand in glove. You can't do one without the other. If you don't resolve things within your own life and your own psyche and your own preconceived ideas, you plateau within your work. You just don't get much better.
yeah.
So often what happens is it's a symbiotic relationship where your life transforms and changes so that the work transforms and changes for the exact reason that you say that you can become a vessel that is uncontaminated and can hold more love.
Mm,
That's basically the difference between a really good reader and an okay reader, is that they typically have done a lot more work on themselves and resolved a lot more within themselves.
yeah. I love that. And just coming back to both of you, obviously, you're very busy, you're much in demand. Um, do you find that when you've had really busy periods, and I know you've said you're feeling like you need to take a break, and I'm glad you're doing that, but is there a danger also that you get fatigued from because there's, when you're reading or you're doing a past life regression or whatever, it must take stuff out of you, right? Energetically, it's quite a demanding thing, and that's something else I want people to realize, that it's not like they're just sitting there and just la da da messages coming through. That it's actually you are really putting your energy in that room to help that person connect. So my long question, sorry, is that do you find, or especially in your early days, how did you cope with that? That contamination from other people's energies or other people's dramas, and not allow that to affect your own health, but also affect the readings of other people.
Well, it's what you teach on the courses, isn't it? It's grounding and protection is the basis of all of this work. We have to make sure there are certain ceremonies that I suppose we do
Mm.
before a reading and after a reading, opening up, closing down, using, white light to clear the space, using smudges to clear the space. It's really important that that spiritual hygiene is kept up, and that's the first thing that Fingal teaches on the course. Because if you don't have that foundation, it's exactly that. You will eventually become fatigued, and there are still times. I think I'm slightly newer to this, but I've been doing this professionally now, what, 3 years?
Yeah, 3, 4 years.
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
So I'm still finding my way with that. And I can, to be completely honest, I can still come out of readings and I am in pain and exhausted, because it's like we joke about it sometimes. If we're in it, say we've had a difficult day and we're going in, our hard thing is we work on the business and then sometimes we have to switch into this mode and go and do a reading. And that transition is hard. And sometimes it's like pulling from source to get this information. When you said it isn't, we don't just sit there and go la 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 la. We have to be so.
But we also have to make it look easy.
Yes.
And effortless.
Yes.
It's like being a ballerina. It's like it looks very graceful and easy, and I could do that. But then actually, there's a reason why it's called the work. It is work. It is
hard
really
work.
And partly that's, you might be dealing with a divorce, then you're dealing with somebody that's at a crossroads, then you're dealing with somebody that doesn't know their purpose, then you're dealing with somebody in a relationship crisis, and you've constantly switching gears on what's coming through. But spirits support you in that. And what tends to happen is they'll send you a little glut of 7 people that are moving house. And then you'll have 7 people that are all going through a divorce. It's really bizarre, but you can become more expert and recognize those kind of energies. But yeah, exactly as Jamie was saying, we do have these little ceremonies. I tend to wash my hands after a reading to just kind of clear that away. I used to be terrible at it. Used to be really, really bad at it. In recent times, I've got better, but I used to be really wiped and I'd often, the biggest sign, and I think this applies both to readings, but also to life in general, is if you're ruminating on a situation, an argument, what happened at work, what you've got to do, you're energetically plugged in. So that's pulling your energy away. It's depleting you. So I've got much better when I'm ruminating about a reading and thinking, oh, I should have said that, or did that make sense, or XYZ. Now I just go, no, 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 no. Cut it off. We're not, my work here is done.
Yes.
I bring a guillotine down and say, right, that's it. But before, sometimes I'd have sleepless nights thinking, what about this and what about that one?
Well, it's such a huge responsibility, isn't it? And we are wanting to do the best work possible, but we're also human. We're also working with spirit in human form. So sometimes we go into a reading and we're not feeling great. We're not feeling at our best. It's so difficult. And we have to hold that space for somebody with love. And afterwards, that can be that kind of worrying. And I've noticed those are the times when you haven't kind of properly closed down, that you are just ruminating, worrying, you can't sleep, and you just have to go, okay, go back in, close down. Almost, I've started doing this thing where I imagine this cord being cut. So I have these scissors and I just see it snip, 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 and just disconnect from that person, because you have been in their life for an hour. You are into their life and you energetically feel it. They're speaking to you. So it can be hard not to take that with you. It's a real practice. It's a real
And that's that point about the contamination, isn't it? Because if you're still connected to them, when you go into the next one, there's still remnants of what happened there that could affect how you see that. That's so well described. I love that. And I want to ask you, obviously, you live together as well. And, sometimes when people work together, that work sort of carries through into your personal life. Do you find that your, dinner time conversations are about work, or how do you switch off and actually, really allow yourselves to be just,
Oh,
like a
we
couple?
never experienced that problem, Rahini. It's absolutely secret. Oh, I've been utterly facetious. This has been, it's an interesting question because this has definitely been at the forefront of our relationship at the moment and how to balance those two things. We're fairly good at ensuring that we don't talk about work stuff at the dinner table, or we do tend to have a kind of cut-off point. Thankfully, our evening time is our evening time. The struggle is more just around working together, living together, and being partners. It is a lot. It demands an awful lot from us. And that is a work in progress. That obviously comes with its challenges. Um, when I feel that my needs aren't being met, when Jamie feels like his needs aren't being met, it's navigating all of these different dynamics simultaneously. And I think the crux of a lot of the issues is our work styles are very, very different as well. I'm kind of a solo agent. I just kind of get on
He
with
just
it
puts his earphones in and can just be like that for 6 hours, whereas I need to engage and talk
and be more
more
collaborative.
collaborative, and he doesn't like working like that. So that's the biggest issue for us that we're having to navigate and put in boundaries, and I'm not great with that. Completely
So it's a work in progress.
hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It'd be disingenuous for us to say we've got it nailed down,
But it's
but
better.
it is, yeah.
Since we've had the new house and we've got the office,
Mm.
now all the work's been done upstairs. But once that's done, the office is great because we come down and we're in office mode, and then we can leave and go upstairs and go back into kind of partner house mode and all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
that would be a game changer once the house is
Yeah, that's a
finished.
real boon. But I think, it sounds like such a cliche, but it's 100% true. It's communication.
Mm.
We are really good at talking things through. And even in those times where things may get a little bit fraught or a bit heightened or a bit frustrated, we're pretty good at just letting that go fairly quickly.
Yeah.
It very rarely rolls on and rolls on. There's
I am.
Can you sort of use your psychic powers to read one another's minds and sort of preempt even having a conversation? Sorry, I'm being tongue in cheek here, but actually a serious question.
We've never really, I think Fingal's only ever read for me once, and
Yeah.
I've never read for you.
No.
Oh, we've sometimes done our year ahead readings with the cards,
That's
but
true.
we never really work with each other like that, do we?
No,
It's funny.
no.
It's quite hard to do it with somebody you're so close to.
Yes,
We
I can imagine.
You don't wash up enough. You didn't cook me dinner. That would be the bulk of the reading.
So I'm conscious that you've got to shoot in very, very shortly. So I want to sort of end on a sort of note where I'd like you both maybe to share individually a client that really, was very interesting. You sort of maybe taught you something amazing and new, or even shook you up in some way. So, just a very, very sort of impactful, memorable experience with a client.
You do ask good questions,
You do.
Rahini. These are
Thank you,
great.
thank you.
I'll let you get
I
first.
try.
Okay, so I was training not too long ago with somebody else on Zoom. I did another 8-week course in psychic mediumship, and it's always easier when you're training as well. I have to say, when you're in training mode, my readings can be so accurate because there's no pressure, there's no responsibility. I can say what I want, and usually that's when you're in that place, that's when you're in flow, and the readings are amazing. So this is a good one, but I was reading for somebody, and it was one of those sensitive situations that I've talked about that I had to skirt around it slightly. But basically, Spirit was saying that there was a child that had passed of cancer at an early age. And what I couldn't figure out was whether it was her daughter or whether it was somebody else. So I kind of went in slowly. And then it was actually, with me, it always tends to be the last 5 minutes that I kind of go when I feel really confident that I'm with me, that there's a connection, there's a really strong connection. And then I just went in and they gave me the name as well. And I said, look, I'm going to be really honest. I've got a child with me. They've lost their hair, which makes me feel like it was a cancer diagnosis. And their name was X. And this girl just broke down into tears. And
Wow.
I was like, okay, I'm right. So that's good in a way. But now where do I go? And it turns out, and this is where it wasn't so clear. I assumed it was her child that had lost, but it was actually her mum's child, her sister, that was lost at a very, very young age. And actually the healing in that reading came through because her mum couldn't find a way to talk about that loss.
Mm.
So it was something that the sitter that I was with had never really had the chance to be with that energy and explore it and allow it to come up. And I gave her permission to feel into that and to allow that healing to happen, because it might not have been that consciously she experienced that, but for sure she has felt the effects of that during her life with her mum losing her first child.
Yeah.
So that was really healing for her. And then later she came back and just said, I spoke to my mum about it and it instigated this whole conversation. And we decided that, it's giving me chills actually, we
Yeah.
decided that we were going to bring her up and we were going to talk about her more often and allow her existence to be here. And it wasn't going to be something that we were going to just forget because it's important. So that was a really profound reading for me where I came off being like, that's the work.
Yeah.
That's the work.
So you kind of opened a door, like it was almost like a portal, wasn't it? Which gave them permission to allow the energy of this spirit that was no longer with them. How beautiful. Thank you. What about you, Phil?
I really like what you said in terms of um, just because somebody is no longer with us physically doesn't mean that that relationship still can't be healed
Yeah, I love
and
that.
be resolved. And this is the wonderful thing about mediumship. You know, again, it's what sometimes frustrates me when people dismiss it or poke fun at it, is actually we've had many instances where you're passing on messages and that healing and that reconciliation and that family lineage is healed. Very interesting. Since I've started this work, I hadn't realized how essential our ancestors are and
Mm.
how connected we are to our ancestors. And they've done scientific experiments with mice where they've induced trauma with a mouse and it's being passed down through
Yeah.
7 generations and then cleared, and all of these. And the more and more I do this work, the more, you know, these family ties are so strong. And that doesn't mean that family ties need to be perfect, all those relationships need to be perfect, but they do need to be reconciled. They
Yeah.
do. It's a really key part, because otherwise it's just passing on that kind of same level of
Mm.
trauma. I suppose for me, there are a couple of readings that do jump out. But I want to share that actually the most curious readings is when you're giving a message and you feel like you're talking to yourself, in so much as this message is for me as much as it is for you.
Mm.
Spirit are mirroring back. You're sitting opposite somebody, you're thinking, this is uncanny.
And that happens a lot.
It happens a lot. And I always say thank you to my client. I'm always like, thank you so much, because I needed to hear this as much as you did.
Mm.
And I, you know, I'm very open by the fact that I say do this, but I'm not doing it myself, so I'm being a complete hypocrite. But I feel that that can be very that's enormously helpful. And also being on the receiving end of readings, particularly when you're training, because you're almost having readings every week. And I've learned more around my family and that lineage, and I feel much more connected because I never met my grandfather, never really met my grandmother, but I feel like I know them
Mm.
with work, and that's been really invaluable. Actually, it's really brought them closer.
That's so beautiful. So we have a few minutes left, and I'd love for both of you to maybe share what you think people who are listening, people who are maybe curious about, what the psychic arts or psychic studies are about, but not necessarily thinking of going full swing into it as a career. What are the things that people can do to explore and just, get curious about what it means for them and their own lives and health?
Well, we've just developed the Am I Psychic challenge, haven't we? So it's a great way to start this. It's almost a fun 5 day kind of course, or 5 day prompts of certain things to do, and you can just literally go onto the website, put your email address in, and you will be sent these daily prompts. And it's just a fun way to tap into your intuition. So
Mm.
it's that very, very start of the journey where everyone has these stories, right? You always meet somebody that has a story and says, "Oh yeah, this happened to me. I think I saw a ghost," or my friend told me this story, and there's always an experience, right? And I think when we start actually working with our intuition, we start realizing that this is all possible and it is accessible to everybody. And this is something that is not special. I'm not special. Fingal's not special. We have just learned and chosen to be open to this stuff. So the start, very simple. You can just do something like that. Just start working with your intuition and start being open to receive, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know what
Very well
else.
put. Very well put. I suppose one of the missions of the Wellness Foundry has always been there's a lot of focus on the body,
Mhm.
the gym, what we're eating, the medicines that we're taking. There's a lot of focus on the mind, mental health awareness, meditation, mindfulness, all of these things. The soul very often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
And people hit these malaises, these existential malaises or crunch points, or they feel lost or disconnected, or they know that there's something more. So yes, it's about the psychic aspect, but it kind of goes beyond that too, in terms of this is about reconnecting yourself to your soul.
Mm.
And without that triptych, there's a reason that it comes mind, body, and soul. And so many people are overlooking and then wondering why things aren't feeling balanced in their lives. So, one of the prompts would be actually, how am I going to start communicating and getting in conversation with my soul? And that can be in any expression. That could be through meditation, that could be through community, that could be finding a spiritual mentor, that could be reading a religious text, whatever it might be. But that is essential. And I think that's the one major thing that people overlook.
Beautiful advice. Thank you so much. As you were speaking, I had a vision of a three-legged stool, and where one leg is just not there. So no wonder it just like keeps feeling like it's falling over.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Thank you so much to both of you. Really enjoyed this conversation. And do you have any parting words of wisdom for me or for anyone who's listening?
The two things that I feel that are hugely missing in the world at the moment are, well, three things. One is stillness.
Mm.
Cultivate stillness, carve out stillness, and stillness isn't boredom. Stillness is receptivity. The other thing that I think we're hugely missing is ceremony. And again, this doesn't have to be grand. This could be the prayers that you say before bed.
Yeah.
This could be lighting a candle and being still, whatever it is, whatever small ceremonies that you can bring into life. They're the two things that I think, yeah, a lot of
And I
people
think
are.
finding the other thing that come time and time again on people is when I'm sitting with clients is people finding their tribe, finding their community, their people that they feel they can be open with and be their true authentic self with. And a
Yeah.
lot of people are in relationships or are in groups of friendship circles where they can't do that. And
Mm.
that's what we are doing at the Wellness Foundry. We're cultivating a sense of community where you can come, we will welcome you in, and anything goes. You know, we won't be shocked by anything you say. And it's funny when people in readings go, "Well, you'll probably be shocked when I say this." I'm like, "We've
We've
heard
heard
it
it
all.
all.
We will not be shocked." You know,
Yeah.
that community is so important.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm so happy I found both of you and I enjoy your
Oh,
retreat
you
so very
too.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation and I wish you both every success. And I hope your retreat to India is exactly the tonic you
yeah,
need. I'm looking forward to hearing all about it when you get back.
for sure.